Okay. All right, I'm going to hit the record button and we're going to get going. All right, well, thank you guys for coming out today. It's been a long couple years, 2, 3, 4 years, depending upon when you invested. We've had the world change on us in 2020, right, with COVID. So we've been through a lot of ups and downs. And so we really wanted to put this meeting together to help kind of, get everyone together, answer questions that we were starting to get, and just kind of explain where the industry is and where our company is, what we've gone through over the last couple of years, and where we think or where we see our company going forward. Before we get started, we got this standard disclosure, right? This is on any investor meeting, you've got these forward-looking statement disclosure. It's basically saying, like, look, we're talking about things in the future. We can't predict the future. We're doing our best to predict the future, but some of these things aren't going to come out the way that we think that they will. Okay. The other thing is that we're not offering any securities, selling any securities, or buying any securities today. So this is an important slide. Everybody's got it there in front of you. Staying informed. In all of our emails, we include our personal phone numbers, our personal cell numbers. If you guys want information about what's going on in this business, we are the people to talk to. Okay, nobody else knows what's going on in this business better than myself or Paul or Cameron. If you want to talk about plants, we can get Dan on the phone with you. Dan's in the back. He's our new grower. Welcome him. We're delighted to have him. There's also a couple social media pages that you can see information, some updates, pictures, things like that. We're on Instagram and Facebook. We have our website with our login information there. So we post all of our quarterly financials there. We're going to post this presentation there with this recording, depending upon how it comes out. If not, then I'll have to re-record it sometime next week. And then, again, our personal emails and personal contact information. So we are the people to talk to if you really want to understand what's going on in this business. If you have any questions about the quarterly emails that we send out, the financial statements that we send out. If we don't answer your phone call, leave a message. We get a lot of weird numbers that call that we don't know who they are. Leave a message. We guarantee we'll give you a call back. So what did we invest in? We, all of us, right? Me, Cameron, my wife, Paul, Arlene, everyone in here invested in this project. It was a startup, right? In a rapidly evolving industry, the industry being the legal cannabis space. Federally illegal industry, right? We're a bunch of cowboys and cowgirls in here, right? I mean, getting involved. Some of the people here invested when we didn't have anything. We didn't have a lease. We didn't have land. All we had was a presentation. This is what we're going to do. We pulled up a bunch of money together. We went out. We built a building from the ground up. Paul Brunsma was there and myself. Been meeting daily and nightly, putting this project together, meeting with Stino. We put a lot of hours into building this thing from the ground up. But when you look at it, it's risk, right? We invested in a lot of risk. We saw this potential, the cannabis industry, the evolving cannabis industry, and we put money into it. So, just kind of going back to that, what did we invest in? Because I think that's important. We get questions sometimes about our financial statements, and they're very legitimate questions on our financial statements because they're complicated. We do not complicate them on purpose. The government makes us complicate them, okay? The government forces us to complicate our financial statements because of what's called 280E. You guys can look it up, but basically, if you run what is considered an illegal business, a lot of tax deductions are not allowable to you as an ordinary business wouldn't. Okay, so let me explain it. If this was a dispensary, the rent that you pay on this building would not be deductible. That's an ordinary business expense. Okay, the labor that you pay your bud tenders, the people that are selling the product, not deductible. Okay, so the government, the highest tax rate in the cannabis industry is the dispensary. It's screwed if you own a dispensary. I mean, it's terrible. Up to 80% in a tax rate as a dispensary. So what we have to do is we have to create this relationship between, and this is all legal, right? This is the business side of the business. We have Glorietta Management Group and we have Bayview Farms, two separate companies. Now, Glorietta Management Group owns 100% of Bayview Farms, right? We own 100% of the stock of Bayview Farms. But we lease everything to Bayview Farms. So our employees, so Dan actually gets a check from Glorietta Management Group. He doesn't get a check from Bayview Farms. But we have a service agreement where we lease him to Bayview Farms. And we charge Bayview Farms 1.5 times what we actually pay Dan. It's an accounting entry, okay? That's all it is. It's not a cash transaction between the two companies. So when you're looking at the financial statements, it shows that Glorietta Management Group made 1.5 times what we pay Dan a year in salary, because that's what we charge Bayview Farms. But that's why we come up with this consolidated report to take out all of that craziness that's going on. That is the best way to look at what's going on between the two. The only thing that you are allowed to deduct in a cannabis business is what is called COGS. Okay? Anybody familiar with accounting? Cost of goods sold. So what actually goes into the product that you are selling? What are the costs inside that business that are going into that product that you're selling? The cultivation, fortunately, is the best in the hierarchy of all these different cannabis businesses as far as when it comes to taxes. We can cram a lot of stuff into COGS as long as we do it right. And that's why we have the two companies, is so we can do it right. So in rent, so Bayview Farm or Glorietta Management Group pays, let's call it $30,000 a month for rent. Okay, that's about it. We charge Bayview Farms $45,000. Do we actually make that $45,000? Not yet, okay? But we have a line of credit that we put in there between the two. So we're extending credit to Bayview Farms. Eventually, when Bayview Farms is running out of loss right now, but eventually when it starts making the money, it'll pay back that line of credit, which is not taxable to Glorietta Management Group at that point, because it's just credit being paid off. Again, this is complicated stuff, but that's why it's so weird. It's because the government's making us do it that way. This is the way that, you know, the big people in the industry or any of the smart people in this industry have to do it so we're not taxed too much. So we can cram that rent into the cost of goods sold, as we call it cost of goods sold rent, or rent cost of goods sold, labor cost of goods sold. So that is the reason why you see those two financial statements that have a lot of numbers going back and forth with a line of credit, with a big entry on the balance sheet for Glorietta Management Group, which is debt owed by Bayview Farms. Again, the easiest way to look at this business and how we are doing is the consolidated report. That's what we're going to go over today because it makes the most sense. It's like how much money came into the corporations, what did we spend it on, what do we have left over, okay? I'm going to go line item on that with you guys today. And here we go. At first glance, so the consolidated report here, we were actually profitable last year. These are real numbers, not by much, not by where we wanted to be, but if you go to net cash provided by operating activities, $21,000. So we had, and this is cash basis here, so we had some money that was owed to us. We had a sale at the end of the year that rolled over and was paid this year. Our Our accrual accounting, the number's going to be a little bit different because that accrual actually lands on last year's books, but this is a cash accounting, what actually came into the business. Just under $3.4 million in sales. I mean, that's a lot of sales. You know, that's a lot of product being sold. What did we sold 3,100 pounds of cannabis last year, 3,100, just a ton and a half. We'll put it that way. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of product, right? Our director of sales is in the back. It all went through him. You know, he's the one who lined up all the deals and dealt with some very pain in the ass people. I've heard phone calls where I'm like, I don't know if I want to sell to that guy anymore, but he bought a lot of our product last year, so we'll sell to him until we don't have to sell to him anymore. Okay. All right. So let's get to this consolidated report. $3.4 million, we'll call it, in gross revenue. We got rent. That's pretty simple. $330,000. It's about $27,000, $28,000 a month. Is what we're paying. Labor, we're going to break that out further in a slide because that's a question that has been had. Why in the hell is our labor expense so high? And I think that too. Why in the hell is our labor expense so high? But we will break it out so you understand where this money is going. You know, I've been in business for myself for 20 years. My wife and I run our own business. We're very frugal, you know, when it comes to spending money. We don't waste money. So I can promise you we're not wasting money here. What we are spending money on is what is needed to operate this business. And I hope you guys understand that by the time we're done here today. Accounting, legal, and taxes, $105,000. You know, some people might look at that and see legal and think my wife is charging a bunch of money. Zero of that is hers, okay? None of that is hers. We're going to go through our board of directors' income and the key management, what our salaries are, so we'll get to that. $15,000 to do taxes last year. The rest of the money was basically for the attorneys with our lawsuits. So we have and we're going to get into the generator lawsuit here too. So that was paying them basically as we're going through, and I'm doing most of the work as far as answering all the interrogatories and questions and things like that. Because if I handed it over to our legal counsel, she would just sit there and ask me anyways. And then I don't really want her to like bill us for that. So I'm the one who goes through that, answers all the interrogatories. If there's something I don't know, I get on the phone with Paul and say, hey, what happened in this moment? He tells me, we write it up and send it back. You got to stack this high of legal documents that I filled out this year and sent back and forth with our attorney. So that saves us money, that our attorney is not just doing all of that on his own. Insurance, freaking expensive, man. Our workers' comp insurance, we are at a 9.2 rating on workers' comp. For business owners, you understand what that means. It means 9.2% of our payroll is what we pay for workers' comp. It's insanity, right? I mean, it's just crazy. We just moved over to a new workers' comp. We're self-insured. We had to have 2 years of experience. We got that cut in half. Okay, so we just reduced that by half. Now, we have our workers' comp audit coming up here, I think next week. 16. We are going to owe money from last year. We owed money the year before. So we had to pay $50,000 extra in workers' comp last year because, you know, we tell them, hey, we think our payroll is going to be $700,000 or $900,000 or whatever. And then we end up being at 1.3 million, right? And so whatever that difference is, they want a check. And we tell them, yeah, you know what, we can't cut you a check for it all right now. How about we spread this out? You know, so that's what we did last year. So we will reduce our workers' comp, but we won't see the full benefit of that until next year, right? Because we're still going to have to pay some of it back from last year because we went over. Utilities, you know, I'm going to get in more into utilities here in another section. $312,000, that's electricity, that's gas. I mean, we got to keep the lights on, right? I mean, the plants grow with lights, so we got to keep the lights on. We got to keep them warm when it's cold outside. We got to keep them warm. They like a nice, you know, consistent between 60 degrees and 75 degrees. That's where we try to keep it. Grow medium, 90 grand, pretty self-explanatory. That's the dirt that the plants are in. Nutrients, those are what feeds them. So Miracle-Gro, not really Miracle-Gro, but same idea. Pest control. We're going to get into pest control. $82,000, and you think, man, that's a lot of damn money. It is a lot of money, but you know what? We can't do without it. Okay, that is just the raw material price there. We don't have a service that comes in and sprays. We are that service. Okay, we have two guys that roll around with this wagon with a big old drum on it, with a big wand that spray these things. That's the raw material price, $82,000. It takes two guys 2 to 3 days a week just to spray our plants all day long. And if we don't do it, we're out of business. Again, I'm going to talk about that because we had some supply chains issues last year, and we're feeling the effect of it right now. It's terrible. Clones. Sometimes we purchase clones from clone providers. So these are the little babies. Instead of making them ourselves, instead of cutting them ourselves, we purchase them. Packaging, not that much. Testing, not a whole ton. Growing costs, tools, equipment, consumables. We have a whole slide on that. Banking. You know, we're in the cannabis industry. It costs us $60,000 to have a darn bank account. Okay, $60,000. It costs us $2,000 a month just to have 2 bank accounts, plus $170 for them to pick up the cash, plus 1% of whatever the cash is. We just found a new bank. We're going to be able to probably more than cut that in half. We just haven't been able to get after that. One, because we've been working on this presentation. We're going to get after that next week, and we're going to be changing banks. So I'm thinking we should be able to cut that in half. So we're saving money. Generator rental and fuel costs, we have a slide on that. Atalanta city tax, they want their money. We pay them about $30,000 every quarter, $10,000 a month, just to be in business. Office supplies and expenses, the big cost in that is our internet, $2,000 a month for our internet. We have to have a super high-speed internet because we have a big camera system, and we have to be able to upload that in real time and hold it on a server in the cloud, so we have to have that kind of service. Other expenses, we break that out in another slide because we had questions on other expenses, like what is this other expense thing, why is it so high? They're just kind of like one-time expenses that sometimes occur more than one time, but we didn't have a category on them, so those are things that we're going to break out. So all in all, we had a profit of $21,000 last year. Where we went negative was the improvements. Okay, so you can see the number is actually higher than that. The 57,000 and the 236. It's higher than that by $89,000. So we got a check for the generator insurance last year for $89,000. That was deducted out of that because that was an equipment cost, and it just gets deducted out of the equipment like expenses of building. So we're going to go through each one of the improvements that we made last year, why we made the improvements, why we have to make the improvements, and so you guys just have a better understanding. What's up, guys? So you guys have a better understanding of why we're spending our money on these things. So year over year growth, 2020, $1.1 million, 2021, $3.4 million. So we increased our revenue by 2.3, increase of 211%. So labor expense. Why is labor so high? I'm going to walk through what it takes, how I forecast things, and what it takes to operate this facility. But this is farming. We have about 30 employees here. Okay, 30 employees, and they're all juggling these different tasks. One of the things I appreciate Dan for the most is his scheduling. Him and I'm going to show you my calendar and our plant rotations. And so So you guys understand what it looks like to move from this zone to this zone to this zone, and how everything needs to be in alignment to get that done. But he's done a tremendous job of scheduling and keeping these guys on task, and getting really close to hitting those dates that we have on this plant rotation. The two guys that you just saw walk in, they're a huge part of our team. We got the clone manager and the cultivation manager, and these guys, again, if the clones don't come out right, it puts everything behind. If David doesn't have his guys working hard and making sure that all the tasks are done, all the pruning that gets done, all the different things that need to get done in the building get done, we get behind. And that causes a lot. It causes an accordion effect. Okay, huge accordion effect, meaning this task gets behind, this task gets behind, this task gets behind, this rotation gets behind, and then it just it goes into chaos at that point. So we really have to stay on task to do that. We have been able to reduce our headcount in the cultivation crew from 18 members to 13 members. We've been able to do that because of some of the improvements that we made with the benches and with the dry rooms, and we'll get into that here in a second. Our average employee wage with management is $19.70 an hour. If you take management out, and management, the only part of management or the board of directors that are getting paid are myself, Paul, and Cameron. If you take our money out, then it's $17.96 per hour. Imagine being in an industry in Adelanto, trying to keep a team together of 30 people, and there's startups starting everywhere around you, doing the same exact thing that you're doing, and all they want to do is take your employees that you just spent the last year training. I mean, that's kind of what we're faced with, right? So we've got to make sure our employees like working with us. I mean, because we're good to our people. We treat them with respect. But that only goes so far, right? I mean, they need to get paid. And when we see people busting their butts and doing really well in the cultivation crew, they get bumped up. There's guys that are making in the 20s, $22 an hour because, we got a handful of guys that do twice as much work as the guy right next to them. So we pay them. I mean, that's because we can't lose them. We can't lose those guys. I mean, if they went somewhere else, it would be terrible.
Is that what happened to the last grower? Because I see we have a new grower.
No, I'll get into that one. So trimming. Trimming has been the bane of our existence, okay? So what is trimming? We chop the plant down, we dry it and cure it. It goes into trimmers. They take and trim off the leaves, and you end up with this finished product, which you guys can all take a look at, some of the finished product that we have here, take a sniff. This has been the hardest crew to keep together. The turnover, just the craziness of the people that we've had involved there. We feel like we've got a really good, probably core group now. Cass, Dan's wife, she's the head of that. I'm sorry, Cass, that's the dungeon you've got to work in every day, but I mean, the product needs to be trimmed. So I have up here trimming conundrum, right? What do? We can either deal with all of these people, all of their personalities, all their problems, showing up to work, not showing up, all of that stuff, and we put an incentive program in there, okay? And our average cost is $88 per pound to trim. Or we can just hire an outside service and let them deal with all of that. But that's $120 a pound to trim, okay? And that's come down from $160 a pound to trim. So it was $160, but because of what's going on in the industry right now, they've dropped it down to $120. So again, we come in-house and we do it in-house. We deal with those problems. Mostly Paul has to deal with the HR problems over there. So we can grind that number down to a more reasonable price. All right, officer compensation. These are off of our 1099s or W-2s or whatever they're called from last year. I made $50,480, no compensation for being a board member. We underpaid Paul by 12 cents. He was supposed to be at $120,000 a year. Cameron is at $50,000. Cameron and myself are considered part-time employees. I can say that we probably don't work part-time on this. I know I don't think about it part-time. Victoria, last year, 0. She actually has about $15,000 in legal fees that are owed to her. I sweet talk her and she kind of delays them, so fortunate with that. And Arlene made 0 last year. So it would be one thing if my job as CEO was only my job, that was my only job as CEO, or for instance, Paul's job was only COO. We're doing more than one job. And you know, you can take a look at this survey. This is done by who's this done by? Cannabis teams. Cannabis. Okay, Cannabis is one of the biggest information technology or information companies in the cannabis industry. The chief operating officer, the low salary for 2021 was $193,000. General counsel, $131,000. CEO, oh, you cut me out of there. $229,000 on the low side. CFO, $262,000. Now, I think those numbers are grossly inflated. No wonder all these companies are going out of business. But this is the industry. You know, these are the salaries that are being paid for the jobs that we're doing. When I say Paul's a COO, well, Paul is also him and Cameron are HR. Cameron does all of our payroll. Paul handles the applications, handles most of the issues with firing people. He's also our director of building everything. So all the things that need to get built inside of that facility, he builds them. Or he brings in the people and directs all the people that built them. We owner built this whole facility. So we didn't have a general contractor that built this. Paul was a general contractor on this facility. You know how much a GC would have been to build that building? It's probably about 20% of the cost, 20 to 25% of the cost of the building. So, you know, we're talking about $600,000, $700,000 would have been the cost just for the GC. He ran that job. So, you know, I just want to put things into perspective on, we are not trying to get rich off of a salary. You know, I heard through the grapevine that somebody said that we didn't invest so we could have a job. So, well, I didn't invest to get a job, I'll tell you that. I have a job. I have a couple jobs. We are trying to make this thing work so we can benefit just like you guys because we're shareholders. That's our number one priority, is to benefit just like you guys. We haven't had any dividends paid to us. We can't legally, and we wouldn't. You know, the only money that we've made out of this project are the salaries, and I can tell you I put a lot more money than that salary back into this company. Cameron works part-time in this company. I pay him over at Archangel, and I can guarantee he spends way more time on this business than he does in Archangel business, and I pay for that. And I pay for that for a long time. But it's because I want this thing to work. All right, so what are the large expenses inside of on that sheet, that cost sheet? So we added a new category now, which will split off. Most things will fit in that category. The growing cost tools equipment. That's Cintas. That's the uniform company. We spend about $500 a week on uniforms to make sure that our guys have uniforms when they're in the facility that are clean. Because we're going to talk about bugs here. I mean, as gross as it is, we're all covered in mites right now, okay? And if you take certain mites into the facility, it causes a big problem, okay? So we need to have clean. We can't have people bringing in their clothes from outside. They have to have clean clothes. We have one-off equipment purchases such as humidifiers and dehumidifiers. Pad walls. What a pad wall is if you guys have swamp coolers up here, it's that, you know, cardboard looking thing. Well, our pad wall expense is about $14,000 to replace them. We have extremely hard water out there. We get calcium buildup. We have to replace them or they're not working to efficiency. Our plants get hot, we're out of business, right? We have to replace them. Nitrile gloves. what was the number on, how much on rubber gloves? It was like $12,000 or something?
11,000.
$11,000 on rubber gloves last year. Everything we do in this industry or in our business is big. Like when you go to do something, it's not a little thing. It costs a lot to do something. It's a big building with a lot of things going on inside of it. Alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, we use a ton of that. Cleaning our all kinds of tools and equipment, and so we have 55-gallon drums of isopropyl alcohol. On the other expenses, we have interest paid. So we paid back some investors last year that lent the company, let the company borrow money. So when we paid them back with interest. So that's different than a stockholder. That was a bond. It was a short-term note, which we emailed everyone out there. They had the opportunity to purchase a short-term note paying 12%. It was a 6-month deal. So that was the interest that was paid on some of that. Uline is where we get a lot of our equipment from. GA Osborne is the Osborne Pipe and Supply. RF Agriculture is where we get a ton of stuff. So, anything from nutrients to pest control, spend a lot of money over there. And then again, one-off expenses like having our forklift maintained, changing the oil on it, or we had a gasket go out last year and we had to get the forklift guy go out. We had a flat tire, or something like that. And so we had just different little maintenance things that aren't really part of the everyday business that we throw into this other category. But we're going to do a better job expanding that category out so you guys can see what those expenses are. So you don't think the other is that we're, I don't know, going down to Dave & Buster's or something. I don't know what we would do. So seed to sell. I'm going to walk you through the process and where I spend a lot of my time. And while I'm explaining how I spend my time to build the forecasting in this company, I'm going to explain how the company is ran at that kind of together. Okay. So we're going to walk through the 4 sheets that I use pretty much on a daily basis. We got the plant rotation sheet. This keeps everything on schedule inside of the building. We got the plant analysis sheet. So now we get down to a singular crop. Every crop is named. 22-1 would be the first harvest of 2022. And then we go on from there, 22-2, -3, -4. Then we can talk about cash flow projection. This is every single day when I get to my office, I pull up the cash flow projection and I'm on this thing. Every Monday, Cameron is reconciling the cash flow projection from last week to make sure all the transactions hit. That then flows over to the monthly pro forma, monthly cash flow forecast, which you guys have all these sheets, I think the horizontal ones there in front of you to take a look at. So look at this bad boy.
No, Chris, on the back of the one you had earlier.
Oh, here we go. All right, so look at 21-14. We'll take a look at this. As you can see on the left, these are the strains. These are the different types of products, plants that we have in that run. So we've got London, Cushman, Do, Grape Pie, Gelato, Oreos, Gelato, Cushman. Probably doesn't mean anything to you, but those are the names that we're dealing with, right? It's in zone 4. We have 4 different zones. Okay, we're going to talk about how we want to change this up here this year, but it's going to take some cash to do that. So the first thing you'll notice is that we have to clone on May 25th. So what does that mean? That means that Chris goes out, him and another one of our employees, Michael, and they clip off 3,000 branches of a plant. It usually takes, 2 days to do something like that? 3 days?
The time count went up, so 4 days.
4 days? So that's 4 days of work of clipping these branches off, getting them all cleaned up, putting them into some rooting gel and putting them in a plug, and then they go into what's called the clone room. The clone room is a little space where they pop roots, right? They start to root out. They sat in there for about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and then on June 11th, we move it over into the veg space. Okay, it's going to sit in the bedroom for about 3 weeks. In the bedroom is where they're going to grow. They're going to grow, and when we take them from clone into veg, we've got to take them out of their plugs and stick them into 2,000 bags potting soil, right? Pretty much. Think of it that way. It's a lot of labor, is what we're getting at. This is why we need 30 employees. 13 guys is what runs this part of the crew. We have about 10 to 12 people over on the trimming side. So on the cultivation side, they move it into veg. While they're sitting there in veg for 3 weeks, they're manicuring these plants to make them grow the right way. Have you ever seen a tree that's not pruned correctly and it just kind of grows all wild, right? We have to prune these things and manicure them the right way so we can get the most fruit out of them. The fruit is right here. It's the buds, right? It's the flowers. That's what we're at. So we got to get these branches nice and strong so we can get a lot of fruit off of them. After 3 weeks in veg, we flip it. Okay, what does flip mean? It means that we got to, all of our crew, take those 2,000 plants and shuffle them over into another room. It's about a day's worth of work. Okay, so they move them over into the flower room, and so they're taking drip emitters out and then putting them back in, right? Lining them all up, trellis netting. It's a day's worth of work. In flower, they sit there for about 60 to 70 days. That's the average time. The whole time in flower, they're pruning them up, doing that same thing, making sure that they're grown the right way. There's 2 different tasks. There's 2 big leafings where they go through and they just strip the plants down of all the big water leaves, because that way it opens up the canopy so the sun can penetrate further into the canopy and get sun on the buds, on the flowers. It's a ton of work, it takes days to do that. We're spraying them in between, right? We got our crew that's spraying them to make sure that no bugs are going through. We got scouts that are going in there and making sure that we don't have any bugs, or that if we see any issues that we can pull them out. And then we come to harvest day. Harvest day is kind of like controlled chaos, okay? So harvest day is, and I'm going to get into this, but now we do whole plant harvest. So we can hack the plant right at the base, and then we have these racks that we hang them on. And this has been one of the things that has improved efficiencies the most inside of our building, is going to whole plant harvest. That's a day's worth of work. It used to be 3 days worth of work to harvest, okay? So we cut 2 days worth of labor by going to whole plant harvest. That was one of the improvements we made last year. So we spend a day, we actually got it down to about 6 hours now to harvest? Yeah, 6 to 7 hours, depending upon how big of a boot David wears that day, right?
And that's with the extra plant that when we first started, we were around 1,200 plants. Now we're at it's just under 17.
Yeah. So we've increased our plant counts and gone down majorly in time to harvest. We shuffle all those plants into a room, into the cure room. They sit there for 2 weeks drying, and then it moves over to the trim team. They spend 2 weeks trimming that harvest, okay? And then we get to the part where Brandon gets to sell the product. Okay? That's the cycle. That's one of the 4 rooms that we have going on. So there's a dance between all 4 of these rooms that's going on consistently, right? If you look under harvest date, we've got a harvest on 8/17, 9/1, 9/20, 10/4, 10/31. So there's a harvest that should be going on about every 16 to 17 days, okay? There's a clones that need to get cut every so many days. There's a flip that happens every so many days. That's why we need the employees that we have, is to go through that process to do that. And it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work. And now, we feel very confident about our cultivation team. Our crew has been with us, everyone there has been with us for over a year. I think we got 2 new guys, right?
It just hit 2 years.
And we got 2 guys that have been with us for less than a year, I think.
Yeah, just 2.
So these guys are trained, and they're doing a great job. All right, so now we go to the plant analysis. This shows you Harvest 2114, all of the strains. These are the number of plants, and so this is where I'm trying to like forecast. Okay, I go out there, I walk the rooms, I'm looking at the plants, I'm talking to Dan. Hey, how's it going? Are we having any issues? How are things looking? And I'm trying to forecast how many pounds are going to come off of these plants, so I can build out my pro formas and make sure that we don't run out of cash. Right? Keep the doors open. That's my number one job, is to keep the doors open. So this darn thing is ever evolving until Cass comes up with the final numbers. This is what's been packaged, and then we get the final numbers. But between, we've got forecasts built all the way out for the end of this year. So I forecast every single one of these harvests, when that cash flow is going to hit on a weekly basis, based upon how much we think we can pull off of each of these plants every time we harvest. But sometimes things happen and our yields get hit for one reason or another, which we'll talk about some reasons here in a second. This is my weekly forecasting sheet. On the back of this one? Ah, it is. So these are actual numbers from last year. You can see every expense that we occur on a weekly basis is laid out here. And when those numbers hit, so we know how cash flow is going to come in and out. I mean, this number one, it's a compliance business, making sure that you stay compliant. Number two, it's making sure that you stay cash flow. You manage your cash flows. So this is where we spend a ton of time juggling. Do we need more money? How are we going to make this work, right? How's this crop looking? When is that sale going to occur? Hey Brandon, when is the trim going to get paid to us? When is this going to happen? When is that going to happen, right? That gets inputted here so we can stay in business, so we understand our bills are paid. We pay our bills on time. I mean, we actually had a company that we got in an argument with, and they said they owed us money. They didn't. They sent us some crappy product in 2020, and they agreed that we didn't have to pay for it, but they never told their accounting firm or their accounting team. And I told them, I'm not paying it. I said, I'd rather pay my attorney $10,000 than pay you $4,000. I said, because I'm not paying this bill. You sent us crappy plans. You agreed to it. We have it in emails. And so they sent us to a collection agency. I sent the collection agency all the information. I said, look, we pay our bills on time. We don't owe anybody anything. Our bills get paid before they're due. So, we don't owe anything. And the collection agency saw all the emails and they stopped. So, being able to pay your bills on time has developed good relationships with our partners that we deal with. They know that they're going to get paid when they send us product. And then this last mumbo jumbo, these are the actual numbers from last year. So if you want to get down granular into every single line item of where we spent money, that's where we spent the money. Those are the actuals, month by month by month. At the end of the month, I ask Cameron, you get my transaction log done yet? He gets the transaction log done, and I go down and I get the actual numbers every single month. Because for February, I'm pro forma. I'm projecting that. March 1st, we put the actuals in, and we build that out month after month after month, so we can stay on top of this and see how the cash flows are working. All right. Challenges we've overcome. I skipped one. Yeah.
I need to find out where I was at.
Slide 18.
Because I'm recording, it won't let me go backwards. So, all right. So the challenge is generator. So this is 2020 stuff. I just want to talk to you about. 2020 was wild, guys. I mean, it was absolutely insane. Paul Brunsma saved this company at least twice from completely going out of business. Okay, completely going out of business. We had generators shut down because we had 2 generators on premise. One overheated, he ran out there, switched them over, got the other one fired up, the other one overheated. He was on top of the generators, this happened twice, with a water hose stuffing it down the radiator, getting that thing cooled off before our plants died inside of the building. Doesn't take long, that building heats up really, really quick. I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack a couple times in 2020. It was insane. Okay, it was a ton of stress. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't even want to relive that, to be honest with you. Employee retention, COVID. You know, we didn't get hit with COVID in 2020 as far as the farm is concerned. We got hit at the end of last year. That's when the wave of COVID ran through our building, and we had a bunch of people out. It was kind of tough. I mean, we had days where we had 4 trimmers in there trimming. And it's hard to get product out the door and get sales done when you've got 4 people trimming on product.
Out of 12.
What's that?
Out of 12.
Out of 12, yeah. The average person can trim between 1 pound to 2 pounds a day. So you're talking about trimming, 4 to 8 pounds in a day. And, we need to be trimming closer to 20 pounds a day to keep this monster going. The quality of people is what we're talking about when we say in employee retention. We've had some doozies. Some people that are just like, wow, but we made it through. So to your question, removing the lead cultivator, the person that came in and helped us get this thing started, one of the best decisions that we ever made. Looking back, it was probably should have seen the writing on the walls, and having him. It was an attitude problem. A lot of it was an attitude problem, and it comes from the old school way of this industry, not wanting to share anything, always being afraid that somebody's going to take your job or take your recipes or take this or take that. And they were failing, and they didn't want to work with us on trying to fix things, and so we had to fire him. One of the best things that ever happened to our company was bringing Dan in. So I just really do appreciate Breath of Fresh Air. I mean, I joke, he moved down here from up north, him and his wife. I mean, I'm sure that was a big deal for them. They took a shot at coming down to a company and turning it around. And just the way that he interacts with other employees, he builds people up, he doesn't tear people down, he works with me, the other grower didn't. All these schedules and all these sheets and stuff wanted nothing to do with it. We kept hearing, a plant's a plant. A plant's going to do what the plant, and so we got rid of it. So leave that in the past. We are definitely on to a better and brighter future with Dan and the quality of the product that we're pushing out right now. Okay, so generator facts. The question. Well, we're on the grid right now, right? We're on Edison, so that's a big accomplishment for us. That's in the accomplishments page, but we still have a backup generator on site. And we have had a power surge flip our breaker twice since we've been on the grid. 4 times? 4 times since we've been on the grid. Luckily, it's happened during working hours, but the generator kicked on. We didn't lose power. But if that were to happen in the summer at night, without a backup generator, it's hot at night still, we would be, we could lose our whole crop, okay? It's something that we've debated. at the board meetings, I don't like paying, $100,000 a year for an insurance policy. It's basically what it is. We have the insurance policy of that backup generator there in case we have another power surge when nobody's there to go back, flip that breaker back. That generator automatically kicks on and we keep power going through that facility. So our true cost last year was $183,000 just for the rental. The other costs that you see on that consolidated report, that was the fuel cost for the generator. Our cost this year will be less because it's a different, we had the big generator there until we went on Edison Power, and then we just have the backup now. So we'll have the backup for a full year. So we're gonna save, about $80,000 this year. Insurance policy, and that's all it is. The lawsuit, what a pain, right? But we are pursuing this. Our attorney is a good old boy from Arkansas, and he's a great construction attorney. He represents most of the large construction firms up here. Arlene's been using him since her days owning Aspen Pipeline. He's fair to us. He's not charging us $600 an hour. He's charging us $350 an hour. So that's a pretty good deal, I guess. But he believes, he's like, these guys don't have a leg to stand on. I should bring the letter that he wrote to the last attorney just this last week, because he just smoked this guy. He's like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Why don't we get on the phone and talk about it? Like he just smoked this guy. So our trial date is set for June 20th. They pushed it back from March, so that we wanted to go for March, but they have another trial, and the judge allowed them to push it back. So my guess is that we will get an offer, some sort of offer between now and then. Another update that we haven't shared with anyone, we were hoping to have good news today, but all of a sudden our insurance company just reached out to us out of nowhere, the company that paid us $89,000 last year. They denied us on loss of income. Okay, so loss of income, we said we lost income because of the power problems, and it caused heat spikes, which all of this is true, and it degraded the quality and the quantity of our product. Well, they said, well, you're not covered because it's cannabis, and our attorneys were like, well, that's BS. How can you sell us insurance knowing that our income is derived from a cannabis company, from cannabis, and then deny us on? So there's a bad faith. It's called bad faith. We as a board discussed it, and we said, look, we can go after our insurance company and fight this fight. I put this in the letter if you guys read the letters. I don't know if you do or not. So we can go after our insurance company and fight this fight with them. But whatever we get from them, they're going to take it out of the lawsuit on the other side. It's called subrogation rights. So if they paid us $1 million and we win $2 million from the other lawsuit, they get $1 million. They get their $1 million back. So to me, it wasn't worth spending a bunch of money on an attorney to fight our insurance company if they were just going to get the money back anyways. But out of the blue, they came back and they said, oh, we have this open claim here and we think you might have a case. Would you be willing to settle? And we're like, yeah, send us an offer. They were supposed to get us an offer yesterday. I thought we were going to have it, but we don't. I have no idea what the offer is going to be. 5,000, 500,000. I don't know. We don't know. Hopefully it's good news, right? We're looking for some good news right now, to be honest with you. So lawsuit 2020 or June 2022. So what are the current challenges? I'm going to talk about price and the number of dispensaries in their own slides. So I won't get into that right now. But let's hit input cost. Everybody who's bought a steak in the last month understands that things are going up in price, right? Big time. I've been concerned about this since COVID started, and it's just started to hit us. Supply chains hit us end of last year. Price increases are just getting out of control right now. Our bag cost went up 50%. They were $2 a bag, they're $3 a bag now. Okay. Our gas bill went up from October to this last bill that we just got yesterday or Thursday, 86% gas prices. 86%. So they went from 44 cents a therm to what, 82 cents a therm, something like that. Yeah, 44 cents a therm to 82 cents a therm. Look at that. Pretty good numbers. Insane, right? What do? You pay the bill. You say thank you. Send me another one next month, right? So input costs are going up. I'm very concerned about fertilizer, guys. I am extremely concerned about fertilizer. Not only in this business, but around the world. I honestly think that we may have food shortages around the world because of fertilizer. That's a whole nother topic and discussion, but we've been assured by the company that we buy fertilizer from that they've got a 2-year supply and everything's good. I don't know. We'll see. I hope not, because our plants don't grow well without fertilizer, right? Supply chains. This is the one that hit us hard. We had a total breakdown of the supply chain last year. They were out of pesticides for 2 months. The whole country, not just who we buy it from. We look everywhere. We have a narrow window of pesticides that we are allowed to use in the state of California. Okay, it has to fall within the approved pesticides. We have certain pesticides that we use every week. We're spraying, right? And it's made out of mints and cinnamons and like all these weird different things that kill bugs, right? But they're somewhat organic. That supply chain problem allowed the pest in our building to gain root again, okay? Fortunately, they didn't destroy our crops, but they did hurt. This is our theory on what's going on right now. They did hurt our yield. And so the harvest that we started pulling down in December and early January, the yields have just been poor, very poor. And the only thing, we're doing everything the same that we were before. The only thing that we can think of is that we had that 2-month period where we could not spray bug spray. So what are we supposed to do at that point? I don't know. So the pest and the yield, fortunately, those things have come around. Supply chains are opening again. We're back on rocking and rolling with all this stuff. So plants are looking good. Again, like I said, fortunately our product still turned out well. We just didn't have as much of it. So here, this is a wild slide, guys. And the last sheet talks about all the different news sources that we use here. This was in the Daily Press just a couple days ago, talking about, what was the title of it? In the cannabis, or in California, the pot market, a hazy line between legal and not. This article here was one of the most accurate articles I've seen in a newspaper on any topic. This is what we're dealing with right here. In California, there is 7,500 cultivation licenses, okay? There are just over 1,200 dispensaries. That math does not work, okay? I'm not a math genius, but I can tell you that most of the product that's being grown in legal cannabis space is not going into those dispensaries. It's going into the black market. If it weren't for the black market, the whole legal cannabis space would collapse. Absolutely collapse. We only sell to licensed distributors. We are above board. We only sell to licensed distributors. What those people do after that, that's their business. But they sign all of our documents. We got copies of their license. We know they're in business. That story that was in the Daily Press talks about what are called burner licenses. It's crazy. It's wild what's going on out there. The problem with dispensaries is when they passed the laws in California, they put in the law that it's based on local control. Local control means that every city and municipality basically writes their own cannabis laws. So California is legal, Apple Valley, not legal. You cannot have a dispensary, you can't have anything in Apple Valley. Hesperia, it's legal for a delivery license, but it has to be medical. Okay. Victorville, no licenses. Adelanto, do whatever the hell you want, right? I mean, give us the money. So,
Exactly, look at the taxes we're paying, so yes.
so you have all of these different municipalities that, have these NIMBYs people, not my backyard, and they don't want dispensaries. But look, no offense to this place, alcohol, not only can you buy it on every corner, but you can go to a restaurant, drink it, and then drive home. You know what I mean? But somehow, cannabis is worse. I mean, that's a whole nother story. There's a provisional license change that's coming this year. There's a permanent license versus provisional. We have a permanent license. I don't know how many permanent licenses there are in California, but there's a lot of provisional licenses.
I want to say it's about 2,100 is, I think, what I read on magazine.
2,100 permanent. So we're one of those 2,100 permanent licenses. The other 5,400 are provisionals. They're not going to issue any more provisionals after this year. And then, so that means if you come into the cannabis industry and you want to cultivate, you have to get a permanent license before you can start operating. The biggest obstacle to a permanent license is CEQA. That's the California Environmental Quality Act. We've done all that stuff. We got all that done on our project up in Humboldt and those farms up in the mountains. Oh, good luck. Good luck getting a CEQA exemption and document done with all that stuff. So there is some hope on the horizon that these licenses will kind of moderate and it'll make our licenses more valuable because we've got the permanent license. Price history, okay? This is actual price history of what we went through last year, okay? Our average price per pound. When we were looking at the benches, and look, Cameron's got a master's degree in financial analysis, okay? I look at investments all day long. When we are looking at spending money to improve our company, we do a cost analysis on it, okay? When we did the cost analysis for the benches, it was in April. I mean, we were pushing $1,500 a pound. The trajectory that we thought was going to happen last year was that prices would stay there or higher until about October. October is when the big crop comes down, the outdoor crop, and that's when prices start to moderate a lot. In 2020, we were hitting, our highest product sold was about $18.50.
Yeah, 18.
So, we figured that it was going to hit that same trajectory. Well, something happened right about June, July, just a huge flood of product came onto the market, okay? And it just drove prices down. We started seeing buyers start to be super picky. Oh, I like it, but it's not purple. Okay. How high does purple get you? It doesn't. You know what I mean? It doesn't. So it's just crazy. So this was, I was like, oh crap, we just committed to $240,000 for new benches, and prices are doing this, and here we go. So we dealt with it. We stayed in business. These are just some slides on some of the news that's come out over the last couple weeks that we thought was interesting. California cannabis industry on the brink of shutting down, business leaders claim. High taxes. So, they just busted a illegal pot shop right by my office here in Apple Valley. Well, in some cities, my son lives in San Diego, they'll have a legal dispensary and an illegal dispensary within the same strip mall. Well, if you go to the legal dispensary, an eighth, maybe $40, but you're spending 25% on taxes, you're out the door at $50. You go right next door, you don't have any taxes, you high five the guy, you're out at $40, right? That's the kind of the issue that's going on with taxes. Newsom says that he is looking at reducing the taxes. We'll see. We'll see. This is the one we printed out, this story here from the Daily Press. Hazy line between legal and not. That's a great article. I suggest you read it. This is Jim Belushi. He was live on, was it ABC Today Show? Right? ABC Today Show. He has a show, what was that called? Growing Belushi? Growing Belushi. If you guys want to see what the day-to-day life is like of growing cannabis, I mean, talk to him. I mean, look what he's doing. He's talking about growing cannabis. He's like, oh, there's bugs, there's mold, there's employees, there's like, we're like, oh yeah, man, this guy gets it, right? So, challenges, right? I don't want to beat you guys up, but like, I just want to be real with you. These are the things, these are the day-to-day things that Paul and I and Cameron and our wives and Dan and David and Chris and Cass, and like, these are the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Paul and I have many discussions talking to each other about not getting burnt out on this thing. Because the last thing that we need and this company needs is for us to get burnt out on this. And I'm telling you, the last couple of weeks have been insane, intense, okay? But we're here. So now I want to talk about the accomplishments of what we've done to get to where we are today. Building this thing from the ground up, I mean, that's not an easy task, okay? I've never developed anything in my life. I've learned a lot. Licenses and inspections, we didn't hire any consultant to fill out any of our applications to get any of our licenses. We've heard of companies spend $250,000 on consultants and get zero, nothing. No license, no permits, no anything. We did that in-house. We try to do as much as we can in-house, to save money. The building teams part, this is huge, we appreciate working with Dan, and I appreciate working with Paul and, the guys in the back. We have a good team right now, and we feel very good about it. It's taken a long time to get here. We've had to wade through a lot of sewage to get here, but we believe that we've got a great team right now. Having the electricity, Graham knows how valuable that is out in the city of Atlanta, right? I mean, that's a big deal. Our reputation and relationships with our suppliers and our buyers, if we have a disagreement with the people that buy product with us, we're fair and they're fair. We have good relationships and good working relationships with the people that we do business with. And we're going to talk about the continuous improvements, okay, because this is very important. And still in operation while many have closed, okay? I mean, God forbid, but, any day we could wake up and, we lose power or something and it could just wipe out the whole crop, and we're like, well, we gave it our best shot, you know what I mean? And I'll cry, and that's probably about it, But as of right now, we're in business. We're still in the game. We have, I was with Stino, the architect for our, who's basically done all the drawings for us. He was telling me of a firm up north, $120 million project. Liquidated, selling everything. They can't make it in this industry. There's going to be a lot of companies that fail in this industry right now. That is the normal shakeout of any boom and bust cycle, okay? You see, cannabis, it was the gold rush. Everybody rushed in. Well, drove a lot of prices up for all the materials that you need to build the business. But then all the supply came on, that drove the price down. The people that can survive, because either they've got good product or they can do it very cheaply, those are the survivors, right? And then the other people go out of business, and then what happens? We get stabilization of price. It'll be higher than where we're at right now. Brandon and I were down at the Hall of Flowers in Palm Springs a couple weeks ago, and we're just walking, and we see these massive farms, and they're selling their product, and Brandon's like, they're out of business. They're out of business. They're out of business, just because their product was terrible. Terrible. And then what they had done is they had just taken these big ass farms up in Salinas and just turned them into cannabis farms, and it was just horrible. It was just bad product. And so you're going to see these failures. 2 people on our street have gone out of business just recently. Huge companies have gone out of business recently. We're still in business, okay? So what are the improvements that we made last year? Okay. Why did we make them? We had to address quality, yield, and efficiencies. How do we make our product better? How do we make our company more efficient? And how do we get more of it? I mean, we could just sit there and say, you know, not spend any money on improving, and then we're just dead, right? Because we can't yield more, we're not efficient, and it's not a good product. So we had to put fans in, you know, airflow technology inside of a greenhouse. Who would have thunk it, right? Well, I would have thunk that Nexus Greenhouse would have known about airflow technology inside of a greenhouse, but apparently they don't, because the way they designed our airflow technology didn't work right. So we had to spend money to add fans so our leaves do this all day long. This is very important, this little movement right here. You know, that keeps the plant cool. It makes them stronger. That little movement makes them stronger. And it keeps pathogens and mold and all these different things from occurring inside your plant. We had to do it, okay? The benches, night and day. There's a thing called sunk cost. You know, you buy something and you already paid for it, okay? There's no getting it back. When you're in business, you have to think of a mentality of sunk cost. You can't say, well, I spent X amount of dollars on that, I can't do anything different. You have to think, well, that's a sunk cost. Will the next dollar that I spend on something, will it make a good enough change for that investment? And that's what the benches were. It was a sunk cost decision. The benches now, we have nice aisleways, way more efficiencies. One of the biggest reasons we went with the benches is that it had an under carriage trough to catch the water and then keep all the water off the ground. I mean, David, is it a better working environment without all that water on the ground?
200%.
200%, right? So, you know, water has slip and fall issues, it has mold issues, it has all kinds of issues. We went with a different feed, and which would produce more water, more runoff. We couldn't do that without those troughs to catch it, okay? So we went with a different feeding system, and that was another process that we thought about and modeled out for, you know, to justify doing the benches. The dry rooms, again, a sunk cost. We were very concerned about our space for dry rooms. So we had a certain dry room system. It caused a lot of extra work. So remember I said we do the whole plant hack, we just chop that sucker and hang it? Before we were doing limbing. We'd have to limb out. So cut off each limb, put it on a bread rack. That's why it was taking 3 days to harvest a room. We switched over to the whole room hang. It gets a better cure. Our curing is on point right now. It takes way less labor to do it. And we're going to talk about doing whole room flips, whole room harvest here. We couldn't have done that without doing the benches, the dry rooms, or the fertigation system. Fertigation system is something that we just finished up, 2 weeks ago? 2.5, 3 weeks ago? Yesterday? There was a couple leaks. I helped. Sorry, I'm not a plumber. This is kind of the math that goes into making a decision on a fertigation system upgrade, okay? We have a very specific type of watering fertigation style that we wanted to move to. Think of a bodybuilder that eats all day long, stacks all the food all day long so they can stack muscle. That's the same idea with how we are feeding our plants now. We are sending 2-minute bursts of food every about 15 minutes or so. I know I may be off a little bit, but I'm close, right? So we are stacking this food all day long. We couldn't do it with our other system, okay? It's the way some of the biggest growers in the industry, and those people helped us design the system, and the nutrient company put us in touch with the people that designed the system, and this is the math that was kind of behind it. So potential increase in yield. So if we did a quarter ounce per plant more in yield because of this fertigation system, that would equal $23,000 per harvest. Okay? $23,000 per harvest. Because of this fertigation system, we were able to go up from 1,600 plants to 1,900 plants. If we yield 1.75 ounces on that additional 240 plants, I don't know how the math ended up being the same, but it's the same. $23,000 again. So we could potentially $46,000 just off of that upgrade per harvest times 20 harvests. That's $900,000. I'm of the belief and of the hope that we get a lot more out of it than a quarter ounce. I was talking to Paul yesterday after me and Cameron finished up working on this, and he said the node sites on the plants that are getting hit with this new feeding regimen, the node sites are the little buds, right? So if you see your plants in springtime, you get all these little buds that come off of them where the fruit's going to come. Same thing on a cannabis plant. Well, he said there's 14 node sites off the main stem. That same plant in a different section of our building that hasn't been hit with that same fertigation system from the beginning has 7. So they doubled the node sites just off of, and the only thing different is that we're stacking the feed. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a double. I mean, if it was a double, it'll be a home run, and we'll be having this meeting at there'll be food here. So I don't know. It'll be nice. It'll be an open bar, yeah.
It's not?
Another thing with the fertigation system is that it's less labor. Okay. Again, we've cut out. How much did we cut out, Dan, in labor with the fertigation system instead of having you and Giannis running back and forth?
At least 2 hours a day between me and him running around flipping the valves, making sure this is getting watered.
So at least
And
two
that's every day.
2 hours each, or 2 hours.
So total.
2 hours
an hour
total.
for each of us.
So we're cutting labor with that cost. Today in this industry, if you are not producing good product, even if you're producing good product, but it's not purple, you're getting hit with price, right? They're beating you up on price. But if you're producing bad product, my goodness, you're out of business, man. I mean, I don't know what you're selling it for. $300, $200, $100 a pound? Like, you can't grow this stuff for that cheap. These are our latest 2 tests of product that we just had done. Was that January 25th is when we got it back, or that was the collection date. Our Triangle Mints hit 30% THC. Our Gelato Kush Mints hit 31.5% THC. If you go into any dispensary and you look for product that has that type of THC numbers, you're going to spend $40, $50, $60 an eighth for that. I mean, this is good product. This is, as far as THC is concerned. We're very confident in our ability to put good product out. If we weren't putting good product out, we would be having a very different conversation right now. It would be because we'd be going out of business, right? Like, that's the name of the game right now. If you're not putting good product out, you're in a lot of trouble. So we asked the question, or brought up the question, what did we invest in, right? Just as a reminder, what did we invest in? And now the question is, why did we invest? Why? You may be wondering, why in the heck did we invest, right? Why did we invest in this project? I know why I did, and it was the potential for a home run. It was a potential for a home run. And I saw you pointing at Paul. And look, I had my best friend. I had my best friend the other day tell me, he's like, look, man, he's like, I didn't invest in the cannabis industry. I invested in you. And I was like, well, thanks. That's rough. You know what I mean? And I've had other people tell me that. But the whole idea was the potential for a home run, right? It was to make outsized return, whether it was a high income, right, or whether it was a high growth. We invested in the cannabis industry, all of us, because it was the potential of a home run. Well, we're still in the game, guys, right? You can't hit a home run if you're out of the game. We're still in the game. So I want to talk to you about what is the potential that we see still in this industry.
What base are we on?
What's that?
We all vote, you want a second?
It's an,
Second base?
it's the eighth inning. It's the eighth inning, right?
I'm in the dugout.
So this blew my mind when I read this the other day. Planet 13, which is a huge dispensary, they started out of Las Vegas. They've moved down into Santa Ana. They're trying to take over the world. But they bought a cultivation company out of Northern California for $71 million US. I looked at it. It was a 35,000 square foot indoor facility. We're not an indoor facility. We're a mixed light greenhouse, but we're 30,000 square feet. Okay, so if we're half as valuable as an indoor, I think we're more valuable than an indoor. That means if we were hitting it out of the ballpark, we could potentially be somewhere in that range. Maybe, maybe not. Let's go through some of the metrics. These are just the industry buyout numbers, okay? That we've heard, that I've read about, is 3 times revenue, okay? Our revenue last year, well, I can't go backwards because I'm on. Our revenue last year was $3.4 million. So if you multiply that by 3, that's an easy number, $10.2 million. Do I think somebody would come in and give us $10.2 million today for our business? I don't. The more we make above break even, the more likely somebody would come in and give us that 3 times revenue. Okay? So we're just right there at break even. So the better we do above that, the more likely we can get that 3 times revenue. This year, we're projecting that we think we can make about $4.5 million this year. I was thinking about that statement all the way till this morning. I think it's just as likely that we hit $5.5 million as we hit $3.5 million. That's right in the center, right? 4.5 is right in the center. I think it's just as likely as we do $1 million above that or $1 million below that. That's the variability of, of a risky business. That's the variability. If there was no variability to it, it wouldn't be risky. It would be money in the bank, right? So, but I think that we can hit the $4.5 million. How I get there, which, sorry, I flipped through it, but the price yield matrix is, at $1,000 a pound, 1.75 ounces per pound, per plant, that's $4.1 million. And then you throw some trim cells in there, that gets us to the 4.5. I honestly believe that we can do 2.5 ounces a plant. This has been one of the biggest variables inside of our business, is how many ounces per plant we're hitting. Yield is the thing that we are trying to fix the most right now, is yield. We have no control over price other than producing a quality product. That's the only control over price we have. So we're producing a quality product. Okay, check. Now we got to produce a bunch of it. And so that has been the focus of our company over the last year, is to get that yield up. I think we can do 2.5. Our highest yielding plant that we have had was 3.6 ounces per plant. Okay? So we've had very high yielding plants. We've had, 3.2 ounces a plant. We had 2.8 ounces a plant. We've had a lot of, but then, we had the bugs and we got hit hard over the last, couple months. All right, so what is our 12-month strategy? Obviously to stay in business, okay? Stay in business to allow all of these things that we've done, all of these improvements to take hold. That's a good strategy, right? Win this lawsuit. I think, I'm high confidence. I'm never 100% confident about much, but, I'm in the 90 percentile that we're going to win this lawsuit, and we're going to get a big payday out of it. We're going to get back what we paid out. We spent a lot of money in extra cost because of this generator issue. All of that money on that backup generator that I'm talking about, $105,000, that should come back to us. That generator was designed for reliable and redundant. That's backup. right? Backup power. So we need to make sure that we have backup power. We believe that the way to create the most value for you guys, shareholders, and us, shareholders, is to purchase the property. Okay, so we have a purchase option inside of our lease agreement to purchase that property. So once we get cash, we're going to get into that negotiation and try to purchase the property. We have some investors locally that are willing to help us out with some debt as long as we come in with a big chunk of debt as well. So that is one of the top priorities for us, is to purchase that property. We're going to talk about whole room harvest, but I just want to mention none of the whole room harvest would not be possible without all of those improvements that we made last year. The benches, the dry rooms, what else? Fertigation. We are in the process of getting approval for Edison for the second side. Okay, so getting Edison approval on that second side. That makes our project worth more. You know, if we already have the approval, we get the transformer set on that second side, and we just decide to sell the whole thing, it's going to be worth a lot more by having that power there and allocated to us than if we did it. And then, you know, I say that I was joking, we're in the 8th inning. Well, you know, I think the next 12 months are just vitally important for this business, for us to assess what to do with it. Is this puppy going to be able to run on its own? Okay? Because we've had to make a lot of cash infusions into this thing, and this thing needs to stand on its own. It needs to stand on its own. And so that will be done by yield. That's the only way that it's going to be done. So there's not many more levers that we can pull to get more yield. I mean, we may change the light bulbs because we've been running on these light bulbs for 2 years. I mean, that's a $17,000 expense, light bulbs, right? Like I said, everything you do is big in this business, okay? But that may be our last little thing to try to pull yield up. So if we can't, then we're going to have to assess other options with this business. So this is how we currently move the plants through the building. We have the veg rooms on the ends and then the flower rooms. So we have flower 1 north and south, flower 2 north and south. Flower 1 north and south, that's one big room. There's no wall in between it. It's just 2 different zones. Okay? So we put the veg from clone into veg, and then after 3 weeks, we have to shuffle them over into that second zone, or into the flower zone. What we want to do is go to what's called whole room harvest. So we want to be able to basically take a clone and fill up all of flower 1 and set them in place and never have to move them again until we harvest. Okay? So how we harvest is currently we'll harvest one side, refill it, and then a couple weeks later the other side gets harvested. So that room is never empty. That creates its own set of problems. Okay? The set of problems is, one of them is cleanliness. Because that room is never empty, we can't just go in there and nuke it, you know, with pesticides and try to get rid of like the little bastards that are crawling on the ground or hiding in the benches, things like that, right? So if we harvest one side, any bugs that may be on those plants, they can just hop over to the other side. Hop over to this. Hop over to this. So getting to the whole room harvest is going to cost some money because we have to delay planting that crop. We have to harvest the room and let it set for 2 weeks, harvest the other side, clean everything, and then refill up the whole thing. See that 2-week delay of not loading that room right after it gets harvested? So it puts about a 1-month delay of harvest. It's our goal is with the cash in the lawsuit to very, very strongly consider using the money to get to this whole room harvest. The cleanliness, we will have again, we can go in there and scrub it down, bleach it, we can foam it, we can throw a big old bleach foam party in there. They have this bleach stuff that you just spray over everything and it's bleach foam. And it just sits there and then it kills everything, right? The biggest thing is more harvest. We can do 20 to 21 harvests a year right now in our current setup. We can do 24 harvests per year with the whole room harvest. Less labor. Again, we would be able to drive down labor costs a bit because of that. Because of that not having to do that shuffle from one room to the next, that's a lot of labor savings right there. Okay? And then, again, the full room resets, that's the cleanliness part of it. On a whole room harvest, we think that we can get to $6 million in revenue. That's 1.75 ounces per plant, right? At 1,000 a pound, that's 55 or 5.5 million. Again, plus some trim cells, that would get us to 6 million. I mean, you guys can do the what if game on that whole room harvest matrix and say, well, what if we did 2.5 ounces, like Chris said he thinks we can, and at 1,000 a pound? Well, that's 7.8 million. Okay, plus the trim cells. Just to give you an idea on the market right now with trim, in 2020, our highest trim cell was what, $205?
212, I believe.
$212 a pound. So the trim that we trim off the buds, we sell it off to a firm, $212 a pound. Our latest batch of trim, $30 a pound. 500 pounds of trim. Think about that. Think about the reduction of revenue that costs us. And you know, what do? Stack it up. Our freezer is full of trim. We don't have any more room of trim for trim. So, you know, kind of wild, right? I wanted to throw this out there. Second side. If we build the second side, then we would be at 14 million potential. That would be a $42 million valuation for the company. Whatever we do, whatever choices we're making, it is to maximize shareholder value. That is our focus day in, day out. Stay in business, maximize shareholder value, squeeze the most out of this fruit that we can, right? I mean, that's our job, is to maximize shareholder value. There are some other levers that we can pull on that we didn't even want to get into too much, but just to keep an idea out that we've been kicking around a lot. It's just that we've been so busy just doing what we've been doing. But packaged product is another area where we can drive revenue up. So right now we're selling smalls, the smallest of the buds that we have, for about $350 a pound. If we can turn that into a packaged pre-roll, we would be getting about $1,200 a pound. It sounds, I just made that sound really easy, right? And you're like, well, why aren't you doing it? Well, yeah, why aren't we? There's a lot of reasons why. There's a lot of obstacles on it, but it is something that we are working on. It costs money to do that. You've got to buy all the packaging. You got to buy a lot of it. You know, you got to buy 10,000 pieces at a time. So again, we are definitely in the discussion of doing that. So capital allocation, what are we going to be focusing our money on as we earn money, as we get money from this lawsuit potentially? I think purchase the property is number one. That solidifies the value. Our purchase price is much lower than the actual value of the property. So if somebody were to come buy that property, that's probably an $8 to $10 million property. Our purchase price is probably going to land somewhere between 3 and 4 million. Okay, so there's a spread right there of value, and that's why it's so important for us to get that property underneath our control. Designing the second side, we're pretty far along in the design. We have the floor plan laid out. We know what we're going to do over there. Right now, we told Stino, let's put everything on the back burner except Edison. That's the only thing that we want right now, is to focus on getting Edison approved over there. And then And then we'll circle back and figure out the rest. Potentially build, again, we don't know what's going to happen over the next 6 months in this industry. We don't know if prices are going to go up or prices are going to go down. I mean, like, so we have to evolve with it. You know, we're not going to build, it doesn't pencil out to build the second side if pounds are going for $600 or $700 a pound. It just doesn't work. If the pounds are going for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a pound, that makes a lot of sense, okay? Other things that we could do is just pay back, you know, shareholders. You know, we get a big infusion of cash, then, you know, we could send a couple $1 million out to shareholders and, you know, get, you know, a chunk of everyone's cash back to them. So these are things that will definitely be discussed and kicked around and thought about. But it's kind of like we are heading to this date, right, kind of in the middle of the year, where we're going to see if our farm is working the way that we think it's going to work on the yield side. Quality's there, but on the yield side, we're going to know. We're going to know by April. That's going to be that harvest that I was telling you about that had the node sites. That's going to be harvested in April. We're going to know then, you know, what is this thing doing? And then we got the lawsuit there, so it seems like we're going to be able to, the vision's going to be a lot clearer in the middle of the year once we see these things kind of come to fruition. I'm going to stop that right there.